Rumi once whispered across time, "The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep." But what are these secrets? And why must they be heard in silence before the world awakens? Because there are parts of you that can only be heard when the world stops speaking. There is a presence that lives beneath your name, your roles, your habits. A being that waits patiently, endlessly for you to turn within. Not the you that scrolls and performs, but the you that dreams, aches, remembers. The one who was here before your first memory and will remain after your final breath. That self is not found in the crowd. It is born in solitude. In the next few minutes, we will walk with Rumi into the sacred terrain of the soul, into the silence where the truth first begins to breathe. We will speak of the power of being alone, not as an escape, but as a return. We will explore what it means to face the void, to know yourself, and to dissolve the illusion that you were ever disconnected from love. This is the spiritual path Rumi walked. This is the journey inward. We fear being alone, not because we dislike silence, but because in silence the masks fall. In the presence of others, we learn how to shape ourselves. We learn what to say to please, how to move to belong, how to smile to be accepted. But in solitude, there is no audience. There is no script. There is only the echo of your own breathing, the slow rhythm of your thoughts unfolding, the weight of presence pressing inward. And it is there, in that still chamber, that the journey truly begins. Rumi knew this. He did not romanticize loneliness, but he honored solitude as sacred space, a retreat not from life, but into it. He once wrote, "A little while alone in your room will prove more valuable than anything else that could ever be given you." These words are not poetry, they are prophecy, because the soul does not awaken in crowd, it awakens in isolation, when the world finally stops speaking and your essence begins to whisper. In solitude, you begin to notice things you never had the time or courage to see. You notice the quiet ache beneath your smile, the thoughts that circle endlessly like birds in a cage, the parts of you that never found language. There is no one to impress here, no one to lie to, no one to perform for. It is in this aloneness that the true self begins to stir, not the self built on reactions or shaped by memory, but the unchanging presence beneath it all. It is uncomfortable at first, the silence can feel deafening, the stillness unbearable, because we are not used to witnessing ourselves without distraction. We are used to running from pain, from truth, from the vast unknown of our own hearts. But if you stay, if you remain seated in the fire, something starts to soften. The racing thoughts settle, the armor begins to loosen. The stories you've told yourself about who you are, what you lack, what others did to you, they begin to dissolve. What's left is raw, real, and utterly human. And in that rawness, you are no longer fragmented, you are whole. The purpose of solitude is not to isolate you from life, but to reconnect you with it. Because how can you truly meet another if you have never met yourself? How can you love someone honestly if you have not stood in the mirror and faced the parts of yourself you've long disowned? In solitude, you begin to integrate. You begin to forgive. You begin to remember that you are not your wounds, not your past, not your failures. You are the one who sees them all. You are the witness. The eternal awareness that was here before the pain and will be here after the healing. This awareness is subtle. It does not announce itself. It waits for your surrender. And when you finally stop fighting the moment, when you no longer resist your own company, it rises, quiet, expansive, like a gentle sunrise over an ancient sea. There is a reason every mystic has wandered into the desert, into the forest, into the cave, not to escape the world, but to peel away its illusions, not to become holy, but to become real. Solitude is not an absence, it is a fullness. Of insight, of clarity, of communion. It is the place where God speaks, not in thunder, but in stillness. It is the moment when you realize that your deepest wisdom has been inside you all along. buried beneath the noise you once mistook for life. In this sacred quiet, you begin to hear your soul, not as a voice, but as a knowing, a presence that does not need to explain itself. It just is. And for the first time, you feel that being is enough. You do not need to do. You do not need to prove. You are allowed to simply exist, and that existence is holy. But solitude is not always gentle. As you dive deeper, you will meet shadows. You will confront the memories you buried, the emotions you numbed, the desires you denied. And this is where many turn back. They say, I am too broken. I cannot handle this. I don't want to feel this much. But these are the growing pains of returning to yourself. Healing is not always light. Sometimes it is a deep and necessary darkness, a reckoning, a dismantling of everything false so that what is real may rise. And if you can remain through this dismantling, if you can resist the urge to run when your inner world begins to tremble, then you will discover something extraordinary beneath the rubble. A silence that is not empty but infinite, a space that is not hollow but sacred, a presence that is vast, ancient, and alive. This is the threshold of the void. It is not something you find, it is something you fall into. And here, language fails. Here, the intellect surrenders, because this is no longer the realm of the self you thought you were. This is the beginning of the great undoing, the moment you stop seeking answers and instead begin to dissolve into the question itself. Solitude prepares you for this. It clears the noise, it strips away the masks, it brings you to the edge of your own being. And at that edge, there is nothing left to cling to, no belief, no name, no identity, only the vast, unnameable mystery that we call the void. And so as we move forward in this journey, we must ask, can we stand still before that abyss? Can we let go of the need to define, to control, to understand? Can we trust that within the silence, something greater waits? Now we take the next step. Now we face the void. And there is a moment in the seeker's path that cannot be taught, only entered. It is not lit by insight nor softened by love. It is vast, cold, and silent. It arrives not as a reward for your spiritual efforts, but as a natural unfolding, the way night follows sunset. This is the void, not a metaphor, not a crisis, but a living encounter with the raw, borderless silence that lies beneath all things. After the shedding of distractions, after the peeling away of masks in solitude, something begins to press in on the edges of your awareness. A stillness too wide to grasp, a space that stares back. You feel it in your bones. This is not the quiet of comfort. This is the quiet that dissolves identities, and it is terrifying because everything you thought you were begins to loosen. The mind panics. The ego resists. It wants to label, to cling, to run. But there is nowhere to run in the void. There is only the invitation to stay, to surrender, to dissolve. Rumi did not fear the void. He lived in it. He danced within it. He whispered, "Why are you so afraid of silence? Silence is the root of everything. If you spiral into its void, 100 voices will thunder messages you long to hear." And he was right. But those messages do not come immediately. First comes the trembling, the disorientation, the loss of all anchors. You begin to realize how much of your life was built on noise. Not just external noise, but internal noise. Stories, fears, ambitions, identities, all of it begins to fade here. You are no longer the child seeking approval, the worker chasing success, the lover searching for completion. You are simply presence. But to become that presence, everything else must die. The void is not a place of punishment. It is a womb, a sacred chamber where all things are unmade and remade. But it is not gentle. It offers no comforts, no consolations. It demands your full surrender, not as a test, but as a passage. You cannot take your name through the void. You cannot carry your beliefs, your trophies, your wounds. You must walk naked into that darkness, stripped of past, future identity. And yet, what you find there is not absence, but essence, not hollowness, but wholeness. The void is not the end of you, it is the end of who you are not. There is a silence that heals not by speaking, but by holding. It holds all your contradictions. It holds your shame and your beauty, your strength and your sorrow, your longing and your fear. It does not judge, it simply absorbs. It reflects back, not your image, but your being. And for the first time, you begin to feel what has always been there, an unmovable, unchangeable awareness that is untouched by time or story. This awareness is not personal, it does not belong to you. It is not yours, it is you. And once you've touched that silence, once you've been held by it, you know something that cannot be forgotten. That everything you've ever searched for was never outside you. It was buried beneath the noise you clung to in fear. But the void is not a place to live forever. It is a crossing, a doorway, a sacred gate through which all seekers must pass. And what lies beyond it is not more silence, but presence, life, real life. Not the life of compulsions and roles, but the life that moves through all things with clarity and grace. The void clears the field. It breaks the old shell, and from that brokenness something new begins to stir. Not as an idea, but as a living experience. You wake up, you open your eyes not outwardly, but inwardly. And what you see is not form or shape, but now you see presence. But before we speak of presence, we must honor this place we now stand in. We must give thanks for the unmaking, for the terrifying silence that stripped us of our false selves, because without it, we would never have remembered who we are. The void does not destroy, it reveals, and what it reveals is a mystery beyond thought, beyond language. You cannot speak it, you can only become it. And when you do, when you emerge from that sacred dark with no name and no map, you do not return as who you were. You return as awareness itself. So breathe, let what was die. Let what was false be buried. Feel the weight of silence not as a burden, but as a blessing. Let the stillness fill you, not to numb, but to open. Let it open the space where the next truth can rise. And when it does, you will not need to understand it. You will feel it. In your breath, in your heartbeat, in your feet on the ground, you will feel that something has shifted, not because something was added, but because something false has fallen away. And now, from this silence, from this sacred void, we take our next step. Not back into the world of distraction, but forward into the light of presence. Into the quiet miracle of being fully here. When the void has emptied you, when the illusions have been peeled away, what remains is not a blankness, but a silence saturated with presence. Not the presence of a deity above you or a truth outside of you, but the presence that arises from within, soft, unshakable, alive. You don't step into this presence with fanfare or revelation. You simply become aware that it has been here all along, waiting. And in that moment of awareness, something deep shifts. The world does not change, but the way you see it does. Your breath slows, not because someone told you to meditate, but because your body finally remembers it is safe. Your eyes begin to notice the light resting on ordinary things. A leaf, a hand, a cup of water. Time no longer feels like something to outrun. You are here, and here is enough. This is the beginning of the inner journey. Not the dramatic ascent to enlightenment as often portrayed, but the subtle, quiet movement toward total intimacy with life. Rumi described it with devastating simplicity. And you? When will you begin that long journey into yourself? These words are not a challenge. They are an invitation. The journey is not about going somewhere new. It's about returning to where you've always been, but with new eyes. And what those eyes begin to see is not mystical or strange. It is profoundly human. You start to notice how many times you betray your own truth in a single day. How often you leave the present moment to revisit the past or control the future. You begin to see how quickly fear rises, how easily joy slips by unnoticed, how deeply you long to be seen, even by yourself. But presence is not just about noticing what is around you. It is about becoming aware of the one who is aware. It is turning your gaze inward, not to think more, but to see more clearly. To recognize that beneath every thought, every feeling, every role you play, there is something that does not move, something that does not change. This something is not a thing at all. It is the quiet watcher, the unnameable I am, the space in which all things arise and once you become aware of that space, your entire life becomes a meditation. Washing dishes becomes a sacred act. Speaking becomes an expression of presence. Silence becomes companionship. Rumi danced on the edge of this awareness, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. His whirling was not performance, it was surrender, a dissolving of the self into the now. He did not seek to escape the world, he spun deeper into it, until the boundaries between inner and outer, self and other, melted like mist in sunlight. And that is what presence does. It dissolves the imagined borders. You no longer see yourself as separate from what you observe. You are not in the world. You are of it. The tree is not over there and you over here. There is only experience unfolding, and in that unfolding, a quiet ecstasy. This presence does not ask for rituals. It does not need dogma. It asks only one thing: your attention. Not the narrow attention of control or analysis, but the soft attention of love. The kind of attention you would give to a child learning to walk, gentle, patient, without demand. When you give your life that kind of attention, it begins to speak. Not in words, but in feelings, in signs, in the subtle movements of intuition. The universe becomes less of a machine and more of a mirror, reflecting not your desires, but your essence. And you begin to walk not with plans, but with presence. You begin to live as a response, not a reaction. But this journey is not without its challenges. Presence reveals everything, especially the parts of you you've hidden. The inner journey is not always a path of light. It will take you through sorrow, anger, envy, emptiness, but presence holds it all. It does not reject, it does not fix, it simply sees, and in being seen, the pain begins to transform. Not through force, but through recognition. You begin to realize that your emotions are not obstacles, but messengers, that your discomfort is not a sign of failure, but an invitation to return. Every trigger becomes a doorway, every wound a window. And this is where the real journey happens, not in the moments of peace, but in the moments of resistance. Can you stay present when you're angry? When you're afraid? When you're lonely? Can you sit with the ache in your chest without reaching for a distraction? Can you listen to your thoughts without believing every one of them? This is the fire of presence, and it refines you. Slowly, lovingly, you burn, not into ashes, but into truth, into clarity, into authenticity, until what remains is no longer the image of who you thought you were, but the living truth of who you are. And here, you begin to notice something even deeper. As you sit in presence, as you open to what is, there is a warmth, a subtle hum beneath the silence, a current moving through all things. It's not an idea, It's not a philosophy. It's a felt sense. A presence within the presence, and it feels like love. Not the romantic love that comes and goes, not the conditional love that demands or withholds, but a love that simply is. Rumi called it the beloved, and he saw it in everything: the sunlight through leaves, the grief in a mother's voice, the tears of longing that fall silently at night. The beloved was not separate from life. It was life itself, unveiled. This love is not something you achieve. It is what you uncover. It does not arrive with thunder or light. It arrives in the moment you stop looking for it. It appears when the seeker dissolves and only presence remains. It is found not in grasping but in surrender, and you will know it not because it tells you its name, but because it feels like home, a return, a remembering, a soft, wordless yes. And so, the inner journey that began in solitude, that passed through the fire of the void, that opened the door to presence, now begins to blossom into love. Not a concept, not a goal, but a quiet realization that you were never alone, that behind the silence, beneath the presence, within the breath, something has always been waiting, watching, holding, loving. This is the beloved, and now we turn toward it. Now we open the final door. Now we begin to remember divine love. Love, that quiet, ancient pulse beneath all things. It has no voice, yet it speaks in every language. It has no face, yet it looks out from every pair of eyes. It is not bound by form, yet it lives within every form. This is the love that Rumi devoted his life to, the love he called the beloved. Not a person, not an emotion, but the divine presence that dwells within all things and reveals itself only to those willing to shed every layer that is not love. The beloved is not found through seeking. The more you chase it, the further it recedes. But the moment you stop, the moment you drop into stillness and become fully present, you realize it has been with you all along, watching, waiting, loving you even when you could not love yourself. This is not the love of desire. It is not a love that takes. It is a love that sees, a love that accepts, a love that burns everything false, not out of cruelty, but so that what is real may finally breathe. And this is why the path to divine love is not always tender. Sometimes it is fire, sometimes it is loss, sometimes it is the breaking open of everything you thought you needed in order to feel safe. Because love, real love, wants only one thing: your truth. And your truth cannot be reached through comfort. It must be excavated, uncovered, revealed. And so the beloved begins to move through your life, not always with caresses, but with chisels. Not always with fulfillment, but with longing. Because longing is how love wakes us. Longing is the sacred ache that reminds us we are more than flesh, more than role, more than mind. Longing is the language of the soul, calling itself home. Rumi understood this. His poems were love letters to the invisible, cries of ecstasy, wounds turned into songs. The minute I heard my first love story, he wrote, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. This is the paradox. We think we are searching for God, for peace, for love. But what we are really searching for is the place within ourselves where the beloved already resides. Not above, not beyond, but within. And to touch that place, we must stop running. We must stop reaching. We must turn inward, not with force, but with reverence. It begins in the heart, not the physical heart, but the energetic center of your being, the place where grief and gratitude intertwine, the place where you've stored every hurt, every hope. To find the beloved, you must enter this temple with bare feet and open hands. You must bow before your own vulnerability. You must forgive yourself, not as a moral act, but as a spiritual necessity, because every wall you've built around your heart to protect yourself has also kept love out. And the beloved does not push, it waits. It waits for you to open. It waits for you to soften. It waits for you to weep if that's what it takes. Because only in the breaking do we become whole. You may not feel it all at once. It may come as a flicker, a moment of peace that has no cause, a sudden stillness in the middle of chaos, a tear you didn't expect, a breath that feels deeper than the body, and in that moment, you'll know love is here. Not outside, not in words or gestures, but as presence, as truth, as something so intimate it cannot be named, only felt, only surrendered to. And the more you surrender, the more it grows, not as an experience, but as a state of being. You begin to move through the world differently, not grasping, not defending, but radiating, not needing others to complete you because you have remembered your wholeness, not seeking to be loved because you have become love itself. And in this becoming, life transforms, not because the world changes, but because you no longer resist it. You no longer divide it. You no longer demand it give you what you already carry inside. You become a vessel for the beloved, a mirror in which others can see their own light reflected back. This is not theory. It is the living, breathing truth of your soul, and once it awakens, it will never let you forget. Even when you fall asleep again, even when you doubt, even when you feel lost, the beloved will call you back through dreams, through pain, through beauty, through silence, and each time it will ask the same question: will you love again? Will you open? And if you say yes, something miraculous happens. Life begins to dance with you. Not just the joyful parts, but all of it. Sorrow becomes sacred. Anger becomes energy. Loneliness becomes intimacy. You begin to see the beloved in everything. In the wind that touches your face. In the stranger who smiles. In the ache that refuses to leave. You realize that nothing has ever been separate. That even your suffering was a form of love. Love wearing the mask of pain to lead you back to yourself. Rumi saw the face of the beloved in everything because he had become nothing. He had emptied himself so completely that only love remained. This is the invitation. Not to become someone greater, but to become no one at all. To be so present, so surrendered that you become transparent to the light. You no longer need to prove, to defend, to compare. You exist as an offering, and that offering is love. But even now, in the depths of divine remembrance, the journey is not over, because love, once awakened, does not settle. It expands, it flows outward. It longs to be shared, expressed, embodied. Divine love is not content to stay hidden in meditation rooms and sacred texts. It wants to live in your words, your hands, your gaze. It wants to be given to the world, not through grand gestures, but through presence, through patience, through listening, through showing up again and again with an open heart, even when it hurts. And so we arrive here, not at the end, but at the beginning of living love, the beginning of walking through the world as a flame that does not burn but warms, as a silence that does not isolate but heals, as a presence that says to everyone you meet, you are not alone, you are not broken, you are love, you are love. And from here, the only step left is integration, to carry this love back into the world, to let the journey inward become a life lived outward, to take the presence you've found and make it your way of being. And so we close this circle, but not with an end, with a return, a remembering, a quiet devotion to live not from the mind, but from the heart. Now we step forward, into reflection, into stillness, into the mystery of the final breath. Now we return, not to where we started, but to where we always were, only now with open eyes. You have walked through solitude, stood still before the void, awakened to the power of presence, and remembered the love that cannot be named. But this was never a lesson. It was a remembering, a slow peeling back of what you are not, until what you are could begin to shine again. There is nothing left to seek, no teaching to grasp, no ritual to perform, only this breath, only this moment, only the quiet knowing that everything sacred is already here. This is the truth that Rumi carried in every verse, that the seeker is not separate from the sought, that the longing itself is a sign that the beloved is near, and that beyond the opposites of good and bad, right and wrong, there is a field of stillness, of union, of truth. And in his words, I'll meet you there. But what does it mean to carry this truth into the world? It means to live slowly, to listen more than you speak, to hold space for your own humanity and the humanity of others, to meet life not with judgment but with presence, to see the divine not only in sacred places but in dishes, in doorways, in disappointment, in delight. It means to become the quiet center in the storm, to allow the sacred to speak, not through preaching, but through how you walk, how you see, how you love. So as this journey comes to a close, let it not be an ending, let it be a beginning, a gentle vow to walk as one who remembers, to give yourself moments each day to return to the silence, to let the teachings of Rumi not stay in poetry, but take root in your presence. Let your solitude become strength. Let your stillness become insight. Let your heart become a doorway. And if ever you forget, return here, not to this video, but to yourself, to the one who was always listening, to the presence that never left. You are not on the journey, you are the journey. You are not seeking love, you are love, remembering itself. Thank you for walking with me, and now may you walk with yourself, with grace, with truth, with the beloved in your breath. From the tender ache of separation, our souls rise and set forth in search of love's embrace. We chase it through the laughter of friends, the promise of achievement, the sparkle of new beginnings, yet each discovery only deepens the void within. Rumi tells us this restlessness is no accident but a sacred summons. It is the soul's own voice, calling us home, urging us beyond the fleeting comforts of the world to something infinitely greater. As we wander through life's marketplaces, reading every book, trying every practice, we still feel that hollow longing echoing in the chest. It is as though we sip from many cups, yet thirst for oceanic depths. In Rumi's words, looking at my life, I see that only love has been my soul's companion. From deep inside, my soul cries out, do not wait. Surrender for the sake of love. Hear how that command resonates in the heart's secret chamber. An invitation to cease our wandering and heed the pull of what we truly cherish. For love is not found in the passing joys of sensual pleasure or intellectual triumph, but in the courageous act of opening ourselves to the divine. In Sufi tradition, this yearning is called shauq, a burning flame that drives the seeker ever onward. Like the moth drawn irresistibly toward the flame, we feel both fascination and fear, yet we press forward, trusting that the fire we meet will refine rather than consume us. Rumi whispers, let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. Here, what you really love is not a person or a goal, but the beloved of all beings, the source from which every longing springs. To follow this pull is to step off the safe ledge of habit and into the wild terrain of the heart. It is a leap of faith that, paradoxically, gives us wings. Pause with me now. Close your eyes and feel that quiet tug at your core. The subtle yearning you've carried for a lifetime. The whisper that there must be more. Breathe into its presence and allow it to swell like a sunrise behind your breastbone. Let yourself simply be drawn by that longing, without judgment or hesitation. In this moment of stillness, recognize that your search is itself the gift. Your longing is the compass pointing to the one love that waits to gather you into its boundless arms. And so, carried by this sacred ache, we journey onward, ready to confront the walls of ego that stand between us and the freedom of true surrender. As our souls press onward, following the pull of longing and love, a new challenge emerges, the mighty fortress of the ego. In Rumi's world, the ego is like a jagged rock, hard, unyielding, and barren. No matter how fiercely we yearn for union, these crags of pride and fear stand between us and the beloved. To move forward, we must learn to confront and transform this inner stronghold. Rumi speaks bluntly of this struggle, urging us to shatter our hardened selves so that life can bloom. Listen to his daring counsel. Very little grows on jagged rock. Be ground, be crumbled, so wildflowers will come up where you are. Try something different. Surrender. Hear how those words echo like a hammer against stone, an invitation to allow the ego's sharp edges to be crushed by the divine mortar, so that our souls might become fertile soil. This process of ego dissolution has a sacred name in Sufism, fana, the annihilation of the false self in the embrace of God. Rumi, who once prided himself on scholarly learning and social status, discovered that true knowledge lies in emptying himself completely. In one of his most vivid metaphors, he declares, "I died as mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and I was man. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying?" Allow the weight of those lines to settle in your heart. Each death he recounts is an act of surrender. Layer by layer, he lets go of every identity until only the essential self remains. This is not a morbid finality, but a series of rebirths into greater freedom. Yet the ego resists. It grasps at safety and control, feeding on our fear of loss. It whispers, "If you let go, you will vanish." So Rumi presses us to conquer this inner tyrant. In another poem, he reminds us, "Conquer your selfish self, then all your darkness will change to light." Notice how he pairs the act of conquest with transformation. By bravely facing and mastering our self-centered impulses, we invite the radiance of the divine to flood those shadowed places. This confrontation is not a violent struggle, but a dance of awareness. When envious thoughts arise, when pride swells at praise, when fear makes us cling, these are the moments the ego shows its face. Rather than push them away, we turn toward them with compassionate curiosity. We name the feeling, we feel its shape in our chest, and we offer it to the beloved. In doing so, the ego's flimsy walls begin to soften. A modern seeker might think of this as the work of inner alchemy, transforming lead into gold by the simple act of attention and love. Rumi underscores that no force of willpower alone can shatter the ego. It is the light of divine love that dissolves our hardness. As he writes, "Cleanse your heart of all weeds, and in its place, the wild flowers of humility, compassion, and gratitude begin to sprout. Now, pause for a heartbeat and feel into your own heart. Notice where the chest feels tight or anxious. Perhaps it guards a long-held grudge or cradles the fear of being unlovable. Let these discoveries be your invitation to surrender. Recognize them as the last strongholds of the ego that must be offered up if you wish to draw closer to the beloved's light. As we complete this step of confrontation, remember that Rumi's path is not about self-denial but self-realization. In breaking down the ego's barriers, we uncover the radiant self beneath, an enduring presence that no fear can touch. Having met the ego's resistance face to face, we stand ready to learn the art of trusting the unseen. For the next step on our journey is to release the fragments we cling to and open ourselves to the silent embrace of surrender. Here, at the edge of the known, the heart quivers with both fear and hope. We have glimpsed the shadows of the self and tasted the sweetness of yearning. Now, Rumi beckons us to take the final, daring step beyond all hesitation. In his resonant command, we hear both challenge and compassion. How did you get here? Close your eyes and surrender. Pause. Let those words fall like petals onto your spirit. Surrender, in Rumi's teaching, is not defeat, but the highest act of trust. Yielding our tight hold on control so we may be carried by a wisdom far greater than our own. The surrender is to release the mind's restless chatter and open to the unseen currents of the divine. As we close our eyes, the world's distractions fade, revealing a still flame flickering at the center of our being. Rumi guides us deeper into that silence. Stop, open up, surrender to the silence. Stay there until you see you're looking at the light with infinite eyes. These lines form a roadmap. First, we stop the endless mental spinning. Then, we open our hearts, allowing defenses to soften. Finally, we rest in the hush until its hidden radiance becomes our new vision. Across traditions, this principle shines. Christians pray, "Thy will be done." Taoists practice Wu Wei, effortless action. Sufis speak of tawakkul, divine trust. In every tongue, surrender is the door to true freedom. Let us practice this together now. Recall one worry you have carried, a fear of tomorrow, a need for approval, a longing unmet. Feel its weight in your chest. With each inhale, gather courage. With each exhale, imagine placing that burden into the hands of the beloved. Sense it lift away, dissolving into infinite embrace. Notice how your body softens as you release. The tightness loosens, your shoulders drop. A quiet ease spreads through your limbs. In the space left behind, feel the pulse of trust, an openness to whatever comes, secure in the knowledge you are held. This is not a one-time event, but a doorway you may revisit again and again. Each act of surrender, however small, a forgiving word, a surrendered expectation, a moment of silent prayer, widens that portal of freedom in your heart. Remember, when we surrender our small self, we do not vanish. We discover the true self, the radiant core Rumi calls the friend within. In that belonging, all fear dissolves, and our spirits are set free to dance in the light. As you open your eyes, carry this quiet power into your day. Let surrender guide your steps, trusting that in giving up all, you gain all. Now we move into the heart of Rumi's teaching, surrendering to divine love. After the daring act of letting go, our souls stand open like empty vessels beneath the sky. In that openness, the beloved's love pours in, transforming every wound into a wellspring of grace. Imagine a cup of dark bitterness, your fear, your shame, your sorrow. Rumi shows us that through love, this cup becomes golden wine. He writes, "Through love, all that is bitter will be sweet. Through love, all that is copper will be gold. Through love, all pain will turn to medicine." Hear how he speaks of love, not as a fragile emotion, but as a mighty alchemist. When we offer our brokenness to divine love, every shard of heartache is transmuted into healing nectar. In the Sufi tradition, this love is called ishq-ki-chi, the love that knows no bounds. It is an ocean in which the soul dissolves its edges and becomes one with the expanse. Rumi's poetry pulses with this ecstatic surrender. Love is the astrolabe of God's mysteries. Within its orbit, all horizons vanish. In other words, when love takes hold, the limits of our small selves fall away. We see not with our eyes, but with infinite eyes, perceiving the hidden unity of all things. This surrender is not a momentary thrill, but a continual practice. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, forgiveness over resentment, or generosity over greed, you open a gateway for divine love to enter. The cup of your heart must first be empty, free of expectations and clinging, so that love may flow through freely. Rumi illustrates this with the moth that circles the flame. Though the moth risks being burned, it does not hesitate. It knows that in being consumed it finds its truest life. So too must we be willing. The moth falls into the flame and says, "I want to come closer. I risk my life for this moment of union." In that union, there is no longer fear of loss. There is only the infinite sweetness of tasting the beloved's presence. To help you feel this love now, pause and place your hand on your heart. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly and feel a warm light entering your chest. On each exhale, imagine that light expanding outward, dissolving any remaining tension or doubt. With each breath, repeat silently, "Let me be empty for your love." Allow that simple prayer to echo in your mind. Notice how your shoulders soften, how your mind quiets, and how your heart begins to hum with a gentle joy. This humming is the voice of love stirring within you, a melody as old as creation itself. Rumi's own life was a testament to this devotion. After losing his beloved Shams, he did not retreat in bitterness. Instead, he penned thousands of ecstatic verses, pouring his pain into poetry and his sorrow into song. His grief became a ceremony of love, where every tear was a gem of divine remembrance. He taught that in final surrender, when all else is stripped away, we discover the beloved's face in every drop of existence. He proclaimed, "Let the lover be disgraceful, crazy, absent-minded. Someone sober will worry about things going badly. Someone completely submerged in love doesn't even see how ugly that lover is. To that one, beauty is the lover's inner face." In this radical vision, love transforms not only our pain, but our very perception. We begin to see the world and ourselves through the beloved's eyes. As this segment draws to a close, remember that surrender to love is not a one-time achievement. It is a dance of continual yielding, a daily recommitment to open our hands and our hearts. Each time you choose love over fear, over isolation, over ego, you step deeper into true freedom. Carry this embrace into your day. Let your words be soft, your actions be kind, and your gaze be gentle. In every moment of mindful love, you practice the sacred art that Rumi so passionately lived, and in doing so, you become a living poem of surrender. echoing his melody of union for all the world to hear. In the tapestry of Rumi's life, no thread shines so brightly as his meeting with Shams of Tabriz, the wandering mystic whose name means sun. Their encounter was not merely a passing friendship, but a sacred conflagration, a divine spark that ignited Rumi's soul and transformed him from scholar into poet-lover. Imagine 13th century Konya, a city of scholars and jurists. Rumi, revered for his erudition and eloquence, lectured at the madrasa by day and hosted gatherings of seekers by night. Yet beneath his respected exterior, a holy longing still burned. Then, like a bolt of lightning cleaving the sky, Shams appeared, an unassuming dervish with piercing eyes and a heart ablaze with love for God. Their first meeting, chronicled by disciples and whispered by storytellers, defied description. Some say Shams posed a single question that sent Rumi into a swoon. Others claim they gazed wordlessly at each other until time itself stood still. In that moment of recognition, Rumi saw reflected in Shams's eyes the very beloved he had long yearned for. As Rumi later confessed, "What I had thought of before as God, I met today in a human being." Here was the divine cloaked in flesh, a living mirror for Rumi's own soul. From that hour forward, the two were inseparable. They wandered the streets in ecstatic dialogue, their footsteps echoing like heartbeats on ancient. Shams spoke in riddles and parables, urging Rumi to abandon all certainties, to let the intellect yield to the fire of love. Rumi, once the master, became the disciple. Forsaking his classes and social standing to sit at Shams's feet in Sofet, the Sufi practice of sacred conversation, their union was a furnace of transformation. Rumi's scholarly robes fell away, replaced by a mad, luminous passion that poured into his pen. Night after night, he composed verses united to the dance of surrender. In the Divan Shams the Tabrizi, Rumi inscribed thousands of poems in Shams's name, declaring that every word, every breath belonged to his son. He wrote, "I have burned my book of knowledge in the fire of my longing, and in its ashes I now find the book of love." Yet with such blaze comes shadow. The intensity of their bond stirred envy and fear among Rumi's former students and family. One day, Shams vanished. Some say struck down by conspirators, others that he simply withdrew to test Rumi's faith. Rumi was plunged into despair, his heart fractured by absence. In that dark night of the soul, he experienced fana, the annihilation of the self. Stripped of his beloved mirror, he turned inward and discovered that Sham's light had become his own. He proclaimed, "My heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles, and a convent for Christian monks, and a temple for idols and the pilgrim's Kaaba, and the tables of the Torah and the book of the Koran. I follow the religion of love. Wherever love's caravan turns, that is my creed and my faith." In this moment of surrender, Rumi realized that the relationship of surrender he shared with Shams was, at its core, the same surrender he must embody with the divine. Shams's disappearance became the catalyst for Rumi's whirling dance, the Sema, in which the poet turned in circles beneath the sky, each revolution releasing grief and spinning into ecstasy. The whirling body mirrored the turning of the cosmos, planets orbiting suns, electrons circling nuclei, a universal sacred choreography born from love and loss alike. For 6 minutes, allow that image to fill your senses. The skirt of the dervish billowing, arms outstretched in the posture of reception and giving, face uplifted to the heavens. This dance is not performance, but prayer, not a spectacle, but a silent sermon, teaching us that in loss we find union, and in surrender we discover freedom. Like Rumi, we may face the absence of our own shams, times when our guides depart, our dreams collapse, our hearts break. Yet in that emptiness we are offered a final gift, the realization that the sun of love never truly leaves us. Its flame burns within, a constant companion beyond the rise and fall of human relationships. Now, in your own heart, call to mind a friendship or encounter that awakened you to something greater. See that person's face in mind's eye and feel gratitude for the light they brought. Then in spirit, bow to the emptiness left behind. Bow, not with sorrow, but with trusting surrender. Whisper within, I carry your flame in me, always. As we emerge from this chapter of sacred surrender, remember that true transformation often comes through the gifts of both union and absence. Rumi and Shams teach us that love's fire refines the soul, first by drawing us together, then by forging us in separation. And from that crucible a new self is born, a self that no longer clings, but dances freely in the ever-turning wheel of love. We have journeyed through the ache of separation, wrestled with our own shadows, and surrendered the fragments of ego that held us back. Now, at last, we stand on the threshold of the soul's greatest blessing, divine union. In Rumi's mystic vision, this union is the consummation of surrender, a state of radiant oneness where the lover and the beloved become indistinguishable. Imagine the drop of water dissolving into the vast sea, losing its shape yet gaining boundless depth. Or picture the nightingale melting into the rose, its song and the bloom fused in a single breath of fragrance. Touch is the alchemy of union. Rumi celebrates it with ecstatic verse. Then, like a drop released into the ocean, all my sorrows vanished in the sea of your love. I am no longer a traveler on the shore. I have become the shoreless sea. Hear how he speaks of shorelessness, the end of all edges and limits. When we truly unite with the divine, our individual borders dissolve. There remains only the infinite embrace of love itself. Across his poetry, Rumi returns again and again to the image of light flooding a darkened chamber. He writes, "In the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures, for in the dew of little things the heart finds its morning and is refreshed." Here, little things are our everyday moments, our breaths, our smiles, our quiet gratitude. In union, these small acts become windows to the eternal, each one reflecting the beloved's face. Let us pause for a moment and feel into that truth. Close your eyes and envision a single beam of sunlight piercing a dusty room. See how the light does not fight the dust. It simply shines. In the same way, divine union is not an act of force. It is the natural consequence of having offered the self fully, of surrendering without reservation. We do not become love by trying harder. We become love by being emptied of all that is not love. Rumi describes this process as both death and rebirth. He proclaims, "Die before you die, so that when death comes, you may laugh and say, 'What a pleasing way to depart.'" In this light, the death he speaks of is the final relinquishing of the small self. When that self is gone, what remains cannot die, because it is neither born nor destroyed, but is the everlasting essence that animates all creation. In that state, we discover our true freedom. Not freedom from circumstances, but freedom within them. The ability to live with equanimity, joy, and an open heart, regardless of life's ebb and flow. Rumi captures this joy in a single line. Why should I be unhappy? Every parcel of me is in full bloom. Close your eyes once again and feel that full bloom within. Sense the warmth spreading from your heart to every cell, an inner spring that never dries up. This is the living testimony of divine union. A joy so deep it remains untouched by passing storms. Yet union is not an end point, but a continuous dance. Just as the sun rises and sets, yet always remains, so too does the presence of the beloved shine through our days and nights. Rumi likens it to the whirling dervish whose arms are open, one hand to heaven, one to earth, receiving and giving in a seamless flow. As you listen, imagine yourself as that dervish, spinning gently in the warm light, your heart at the center of the sacred swirl. Practice now this visualization. Stand or sit comfortably. Extend your arms as if embracing the sky and earth at once. Soften your gaze. Inhale slowly, drawing in the light of union. Exhale gently, radiating that light back into the world. Repeat silently, I am one with all that is. Feel how each cycle of breath carries you further into the vastness of the beloved's embrace. As the music swells, remember that this unity transcends all duality. Rumi writes, out beyond ideas of wrong and right, there is a field. I'll meet you there. There in that field beyond. That unbounded expanse of love. You are neither seeker nor sought, neither lover nor beloved, but simply presence itself. All stories dissolve, leaving only the radiant now. Before we move to our closing reflections, let us honor this moment of union with a final verse. A benediction from Rumi's heart. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come, come. In these words lies the ultimate mercy, that no matter how often we stumble, how often we cling or lose our way, the invitation remains open. Come, again and again, into the arms of divine union, into the boundless freedom of love. Carry this unity with you beyond this video. In the smallest gesture of kindness, in the hush between thoughts, in the warmth of a shared smile, know that you are ever cradled by the beloved's embrace. Your soul blooms eternally in that sacred field of love, free, radiant, and at home.